I know we only have about half an hour together, and I want to make sure that this is as useful for as possible for all of y'all. My name is Paige. I'm the engineering lead for our developer relations team at Google DeepMind, which means that I get to work on the Gemini models as well as Gemma, AI Studio, Anti-Gravity, basically all of the developer tools that we have coming out of DeepMind. And I'm going to talk a little bit today about some of our most recent announcements. We released many, many things at I/O, but I think the thing that will be most interesting for y'all are some of our recent Gemma 4 announcements, which give you the ability to take our open models, run them on your own hardware, and are doing pretty well when it comes to competitive benchmarks. I also want to make sure that there's time for questions. So as I'm talking, please feel free to raise your hand, ask questions, and we'll try to answer them during the presentation. I also do not like slides, so I think in some there will be like 2 slides, one of which is this one. So I don't think it's a secret that we've been shipping at a pretty relentless pace over the course of the last couple of years, both proprietary models as well as open models. Our most recent releases at Google I/O were a model called Omni. Have any of y'all seen Omni or heard of Omni? Maybe hands, a couple of hands. So for folks who haven't seen Omni before, I'm going to go ahead and pull up a couple of examples that might be interesting to share, a couple of which were created by colleagues at DeepMind. So this, you can think of it as kind of like Nano Banana, but for videos. So you can give Omni a piece of video and ask it to make changes, and it's able to generate kind of these new experiences based on input video. You can see like this was an original image of a hand kind of writing and sticking on clay, and then this is Omni changing it to look like a human hand. It's almost hard to tell that this is even that this is a generative model. And then this is kind of the example videos that were used for that initial example. So it's wild to see what models are able to do now. With a variety of inputs and producing a variety of outputs. Gemini is kind of unique on the market in that it can understand video and images and audio and text and code, but also output all of those modalities as well. So it can output text, it can output code, but it can also output images, it can edit images, and now it can also output video with audio, which is quite cool. So our open model family, though, is Gemma 4, and it comes in a variety of sizes. So our 2 billion parameter version, which is actually small enough to fit on a mobile device. Has anybody played with the AI Edge Gallery app by any chance? One hand? So you can download it from the Play Store, use it on your phone. But basically, the Gemma 2B and the Gemma 4B model are small enough that you can use it on like a relatively recent mobile device. You can send it images, you can ask questions about images, you can send it audio and video, and it's able to do all of its processing completely locally. We also had a couple of folks in the community use our 4 billion parameter version of Gemma and embed it in the browser and WebAssembly. So if folks have heard of Transformers.js, the Genova, who just recently joined the Hugging Face team, did an experiment where he took the Ricci Mini, which is one of their robots. He hooked up Gemma 4B to kind of take in the chessboard state and then used that to drive recommendations for the Ricci Mini. I'm not sure how well folks can hear, but Ricci is responding with kind of the descriptions of what each piece can do. And then also told him that the knights can move in a specific sort of way, which gave him the ability to do a checkmate. But this is all being driven by the Gemma 4 billion parameter model, which again, small enough to fit on a laptop, small enough for the quantized form to fit on even a high-end mobile device, and to be embedded within the browser using WebGPU, which is pretty wild. And it's also Apache 2 licensed. So if you wanted to use it for your company, if you wanted to fine tune it, all of that is kind of an option with our Gemma 4 billion parameter model. Again, if folks have questions, please feel free to raise your hand, shout them out. There are some architectural differences between the Gemma model family and the Gemini model family, which you could probably sort of reverse engineer if you kind of look at the capabilities of the Gemma models versus the Gemini models, especially when it comes to outputs. But many of the techniques being used by the teams are the same. And I think there's a good cross-pollination of ideas between the Gemma team, which is absolutely amazing, and the Gemini team, which likewise amazing, but obviously like quite a bit bigger. Cool. So how many folks are working with open models today? And are you mostly using them on kind of these more edge formats, so things like commodity laptops or mobile devices, or are you using them for distributed inference on servers? Yeah, I would strongly recommend taking a look at some of the fine tunes of Gemma, specifically targeted at agent workflows like Agent Gemma. The app that I had mentioned before, the AI Edge Gallery app, also gives you the ability to use Gemma to drive automations for working with apps on your phone. So you could say like, hey, create a reminder for me every day at 9 a.m. to do a different kind of stretch and add it to my calendar. And the Gemma app the Gemma model within the AI Edge Gallery app is able to do things like this. Despite, again, being 2 billion parameters in size, which is pretty wild, right? And completely free. So if we take a look at model performance versus size, this is kind of a comparison from when the Gemma 4 model was released. And it's also got the kind of chatbot arena score here on the y-axis, the parameter count on the x-axis. You can see that many of the models that are kind of an order of magnitude larger are performing about as well as our Gemma 26B and our Gemma 31B, despite them being able to fit on a single commodity GPU. So that's been one of the motivations for the team, is distributed inference is hard. I'm sure a whole bunch of folks in the room can empathize with that. What we wanted to do is to be able to create kind of the best possible model that we could that is also capable of running on a single node GPU. And the 31 billion parameter version of Gemma 4 is a dense model. The 26B is a mixture of experts model. You can play with them in AI Studio. I'm not sure how many folks have heard of AI Studio? Yep, excellent. So a couple of folks in the back. AI Studio is kind of the best place to go to interact with DeepMind's models as soon as they're released. You can select different models here off to the right. It also has inspired kind of similar products like Unsloth's AI Studio, which I love. The Unsloth team is doing great work. But you can select the different model names, you can interact with them, and then you can also do things like see what it would be like to create the code to use it as part of the API. We've made the 2 larger Gemma versions available for testing within the Gemini APIs. So if you want to sort of test it out for your use case before downloading it and putting it on a GPU, you can. But it's quite fast. So as an example, if I add just a basic image, so maybe this dog, and say, describe the image, change the thinking level to be minimal. This is the Gemma 4 26B model. You can see that it worked pretty fast. If I click Get Code, you can see the code and the API that would be required to regenerate this experiment if you wanted to, again, just like test it out with the Gemini APIs before downloading it to your own GPU. And you can also toggle on and off the different kind of base level decodings that you might have had for the images if you wanted to copy and paste this. We also have thinking mode enabled, so you can sort of get a little bit more creative about the things that you ask the Gemma models. I'm not sure if we've added support for video with Gemma, but let's test and see. You can say something to the effect of, please summarize this video and also tell me in table form what dinosaurs are present, along with timestamps. What's happening right now is it's loading the number of tokens. I'm going to hit run. This is around a 5-minute, yep. So I think we haven't added support for video within AI Studio just yet, but you could test with one of the Gemini models or with Gemma on a GPU and sort of get similar results. The Gemma models also have a pretty expansive input token size. So I strongly suggest taking a look. The larger models have up to 256,000 context windows, and then the smaller models, the 2B and the 4B, is around 128,000, which is still quite a bit. Cool. So we partner really, really closely with the community, including our good friends over at NVIDIA. So many of our Gemma 4 models are available to test on things like Jetson Nanos or Orans. If you take a look at kind of some of the things that are available on the Jetson, this one mentioned that Gemma 4 should be able to run with some of the things that you might be able to, win today, as well as some of the other products that they might have at home. And the NVIDIA team has also made them available for you to go and test out. Unsloth, also an incredible partner. They have many different notebooks available for fine-tuning the Gemma 4 models, especially fine-tuning with multimodal inputs and outputs. So again, you can understand video and audio and images with Gemma 4, but you can also fine-tune them for your own purposes. So if you're using 31B and 26B, it's probably good enough out of the box. We benchmark it at around the same capability levels as Gemini 3.1 Flash Lite, which is pretty wild. But if you're using one of the smaller models like a 2B or a 4B, you might need to fine tune it to have it work reliably for your use cases. And the notebooks that Unsloth makes available show you how to do that. The 26 billion parameter version and the 31 billion parameter version do require a little bit of memory to be able to use them, just because their size is so much larger. But as long as you have something that's like minimally as powerful as kind of a basic laptop or a phone, you should be able to run the 2B and the 4B.
Yeah, what about like non-NVIDIA, for example, like AMD or Raspberry Pi and stuff like that?
Oh, you can definitely use 2B and 4B on a Raspberry Pi. The larger versions probably have too significant of memory requirements. But the 2 billion and 4 billion parameters are, like, I both have them downloaded to my Pixel, and it's a Pixel 8, not even a Pixel 10, and both are working pretty well, leveraging the on-device chip. And if it doesn't have access to an on-device chip like a GPU or an edge TPU, it will fall back to a CPU if you're using one of the smaller models. Yeah. Cool. We've also been partnering with Ollama, so you can run them with all of the tools that you might know and love. And then we've also celebrated just yesterday the release of Gemma 4 12B, also small enough to run on a laptop, and Gemma 4 12B gives you the ability to do all sorts of interesting things with the accompanying app. Our product lead for Gemma is Olivier Lacombe. Just yesterday, he shared quite a bit about the new model. So the 12 billion parameter version, which runs on anything that has 8 gigabytes of RAM, supports over 140 languages, also Apache 2 licensed, available in Unsloth Studio. But we also released an app that you can run locally, which allows you to do things like, hey, look through my downloads file on my computer, find all of the invoices, and then put them in a spreadsheet form so that I can incorporate them. It also supports voice mode commands if you want to test it out yourself. So we've got the 2B, we've got the 4B, we've got the 12B available as of yesterday, the 26B, and the 31B, which are really intended more for server-side workloads. And this app that you see is powered by LightRT, which is one of our on-device machine learning teams here at Google, and is a macOS desktop app. So let me get the name of it. We're also using Gemma as the base model for many of our robotics fine-tunes. So if you wanted to sort of fine-tune Gemma for robotics use cases, it supports things like 2D bounding box creation, 3D bounding box creation, pretty much out of the box. Yeah.
Did you mention whether you work with Nemo Customizer and Evaluator by any chance?
We work with what?
You mentioned Unsloth. What about NVIDIA's post-training cycles like Nemo Customizer, Nemo Evaluator?
So I'm not sure about our NVIDIA partnership, but if we aren't already partnering, then we absolutely should be. And I know that many folks on the NVIDIA team have been super, super helpful for things like making JAX, our machine learning framework, work better on NVIDIA GPUs, both for training and for inference. And then also our Gemma implementations that we make available for people to use and fine-tune themselves. Like have to work really great on NVIDIA chips because that's what the majority of the world is using. And like they're excellent hardware, really, really performant and running in Google Cloud data centers as well. Any other questions?
Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
Are the Gemma models open weights?
Yep, they're open weights, not open source.
So open weights as in, so we can use it for RL and we can update the model weights based on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but the full source code for the Gemma models is not available, and neither are the data sets used to train either pre-train or post-train the model. That's partially because so many of the practices between Gemma and Gemini are shared. And Gemini is a proprietary model. The kind of methodologies behind pre-training it and post-training it, some of them are like trade secrets.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. But we are using Gemma all over the Google product ecosystem, just like we're using Gemini all over the Google product ecosystem. So I mentioned that the 2 billion parameter version fits on a phone. By default, it's included on Pixel 10 mobile devices, and kind of helps with things, everything from audio transcription to being able to look intelligently through photos and like help you find things with natural language. The smaller versions are also being used to drive the Gemini Nano experiences within Chrome. So if you've been using those APIs as part of your work for local inference, those are also Gemma powered. And we expect more and more Gemma integrations on the mobile ecosystems coming soon or being announced soon. Yeah.
For those models that can be launched within the devices, are those like local models or do they connect to any cloud services?
They're local models. So it's like 2 billion parameters running completely on device. I can test it out right now if folks want to see. Like, let me pull up the Google AI Edge Gallery app. You can also download it yourself from the Play Store if you would like. But I am selecting, so we have the Google AI Edge Gallery, I'm selecting something called Ask Image. I'm selecting the first example, which is Gemma for E2B. Initializing the model, which means that it's kind of getting it ready to be used for inference. And then what you can do with the model once you initialize it is I'm going to take a picture. So I'm going to take a picture of what it sees in the room right now. And then I'm going to say, describe this image in detail. It's using the model on the GPU because that's been enabled. This image appears to be taken inside a modern office or conference room, likely during a meeting or workshop, setting an environment. The room is brightly lit, suggesting good interior lighting, possibly supplemented by overhead fixtures, walls and windows. The background features large glass partitions or windows, suggesting an open plan or modern architectural style. The overall aesthetic is clean and professional. Furniture, there are several tables set up and people are seated around them. The foreground is dominated by a large white surface, likely a table or counter, which is this guy where the photo was taken from. Technology, a large projection screen is visible on the black wall, displaying a presentation slide. It talked through the characteristics of the presentation screen, and now it's talking about people. Foreground center, several individuals are seated at tables engaged in the discussion. One man in the center foreground is standing and gesturing with his hands, appearing to be actively speaking. Other attendees are seating, looking towards the speaker or the screen. More people are visible seated at the tables further back, participating in the gathering. And it's a collaborative professional setting. And the entire inference took around 34 seconds for me uploading it, as well as running the inference call. But again, all completely on device, no data whatsoever. And this is the tiniest version of the Gemma 4 model. 2B.
Very impressive.
Yep. And if anybody wants to, like, you can also fact check me. But it's Gemma 4 E2B IT asking the image, and then the inference call.
Yeah, I'll double try it on myself.
Cool. Yep.
So you mentioned that for the smaller model on the phone, you already have some agentic features and libraries and seemingly integrated. But for the bigger models, the 26B and 31B, we plan to install it on an edge server. But how do we actually? Is there like a recommended way to develop agents on those models?
You can definitely use so you can use them just like any open models that you have access to. It supports things like function calling. Gemma 4 actually had significantly improved function calling compared to Gemma 3, and you would basically just use them the same as you would any open model. You might need to develop or to kind of leverage an agent harness if you're doing more complex things than just function calling or tool calling. But Gemma's been performing pretty well. One of my favorite benchmarks is food truck bench. Let me see if I can pull this up. I think they recently had. So this is testing a model's ability to run a food truck. So similar to vending bench, like how well can a model autonomously run a business for you? Can it order the supplies? Can it figure out what should be on the menu? Can it figure out like how to send out the purchase orders, etc. And then if you view the results, you can see that they're kind of the usual suspects up top, but the Gemma 4 31 billion parameter version is performing really, really well. So it's managing it for 21 cents, which are just the inference costs, as opposed to other models which had significantly higher than 21 cents. So it made you almost $25,000, but was 21 cents to run. Whereas if you take a look at this one, the kind of Claude model or the GPT models are a little bit are a little bit more expensive, I would say. Cool.
Quick question on Gemma 2B. So completely useful to be on the on-device or in the app model.
Yeah.
And I thought of the use case of 2 weeks from now, I'll be backpacking. And for about a week, I would not have access to the internet. I'll come across wildflowers. Would Gemma 2 would protect the wildflowers perhaps close enough? And second question is, what would be the power implication on my battery life?
So it does impact battery life. Usually what I do is whenever I'm not actively using the Edge Gallery app, I pause it on my phone so it doesn't eat up the battery. I would also recommend using the 4 billion parameter version just to kind of get a little bit more details. But one of the use cases, so I have 2 use cases using Gemma for my personal life, which will probably also tell you a lot about my personal life. But one of them is like monitoring my kitchen to make sure that I don't do anything silly like leave the oven on or like leave the dishwasher door open or something like that. So it will alert me just if I do one of those things using a service. And then the other one is to detect the different kinds of dogs that come into the park across the street from my apartment, and then tell me what kind of dogs they are and keep track. So you can definitely use it to talk through some of the plants that it sees. Yeah.
So another question is, what can the Edge Gallery app do? For example, like in the newest Edge Gallery app, I'm seeing a section called Agent Skills.
Yep. So the agent skills allow you to schedule calendar invites, to schedule daily reminders, to open apps. And then also there's a great blog post that should walk through the capabilities of the Edge Gallery app as well. So it's available on Android, on iOS, and then you can also see the different models that you can select, download, and then choose an accelerator to run them on. Bless you. You can also benchmark their performance on the Edge. But it's been wild to see, like again, just being able to do things like segmentation of images, being able to create like very, very quick apps, to-do apps, calculators, etc. There's a ton that is supported via the Edge Gallery app. And you can also download skills, which are available in the Edge Gallery app. And personally, like I think this is where the future is probably going to head. You know, like the Gemma 4B model is actually performing better across most tasks than the Gemma 2.5 Pro model did. So like if you take into account that whatever frontier capable models are, you know, doing today, 9 months from now, we probably have a model that will fit on a mobile device that can do all of those things. The world starts looking really, really interesting. And things like battery life and kind of these hardware constraints are what folks are going to be pushing the needle on. Cool. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I know that y'all have a tight schedule, and I don't want to like distract you from the tight schedule. So feel free to reach out to ask questions, and really appreciate everything that y'all are doing, kind of building with NVIDIA and Google Cloud. So thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.